that's what we run into sometimes is people say, you know what, I just don't like the ups and downs. Well, I mean,
That's life.
that's life. You got to figure out.
That's life,
Yeah.
right? Like you got ups and downs with your kids. You got ups and downs with your mate and your spouse. You got up and downs with your friends. Like what? Yeah, I just it frustrates me because there's so much pessimistic views and negative around everything right now, and it's just like, guys, that's not reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just not the reality. Welcome to Spaghetti on the Wall, where we throw ideas, see what sticks, and nurture those that do. I'm your host, Armando Leduc, an actor, entrepreneur, and coach, giving you insights that light up your world. We're here to explore the realms of business, marketing, and life, serving up a shot of inspiration with every episode. Ready to make ideas stick and grow them into something great? Let's dive in. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when you are consuming this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Spaghetti on the Wall, back with another one. Neil McPeak Jr. in the house. What is up?
Armando, thanks a lot for having me. Good to see you.
Good to see you, and I'm glad we're talking. It's Olympic season right now, and we got to meet at one of these really cool conferences that called the Exit Planning Institute. I've been talking a lot about exit planning and exit strategy these days. Because it dawned on me as a result of going to this conference how many people are just not prepared for the next part, right? Like we're always just so concerned with startup, getting the company moving. And I feel like if people had somebody like yourself, right, who could come in and advise, not just on the back side of things, but on the front side of things, setting yourself up to make it on the back end in a better way, I think is just going to be transformational for any business. So I was really happy that you decided to come on. Let's talk about your background, how you got into financial advising, and then a little bit about the Olympics.
Yeah, so kind of an exciting time right now with the Olympics. It's kind of fun to see the Olympics in Paris. I feel like they've done a great job with the venue, in terms of how they've presented and represented the Olympic community. So I started back, my dad's a financial advisor, so he started the business back in 1981. Originally he was with Prudential Securities, and then Prudential became Wachovia, and then Wachovia became Wells Fargo. We currently are in the independent channel of Wells Fargo Advisors. But there was a time where my dad came to me and said, if you want to work with me in the business, then you need to study and you need to go to a specific school, that might help you. So we looked at a couple of schools, and Penn was one that kind of stood out. So I ended up rowing at Penn. And then after that, I trained for the Olympic team for a couple of years. The group that I trained with went to 2012. So they were the London Olympics. So a lot of those guys did really well. The 4 got bronze. The 8 got fourth. I mean, very, very close race. Was able to see them in person. Was a lot of fun. I hurt my back right before the final trials, so I wasn't able to attend or go with them. But I had a really fun kind of stretch there. Got to train in San Diego, train in Princeton. But I think I learned a lot over the way with regard to just teamwork, and we had a lot of fun during that period of time. But it does bring you back when you see the Olympics on TV. It's really fun to see.
Yeah, man. And so you knew you were going to get into financial advising?
I had an idea. So when we first started, when I first got into school, it was something that was maybe a focus. It was something that in school you kind of study a little bit of everything. And with finance, it can get very granular, right? So you're talking about numbers, and it can get a little bit boring. Financial advising is fascinating because you actually start to relate to people. So you're basically meshing, all the numbers aspects of the business with the personal aspects of the business. So that was really appealing to me. So instead of just kind of looking at spreadsheets and running numbers and analysis, you had to develop really strong personal connections with your clients in order to really understand their needs. And that personal connection really appealed to me. So that combination of, finance, black and white, plus the personal connection, I thought was the major appeal. Yeah.
How do you get somebody because I have a financial advisor, a really good friend of mine, and you just really like have to be extremely vulnerable, you know, in order for him to help you, right? Like you can't like be, you can't just leave things out, right? It's just, you can't, because like, how can he help you if he doesn't know all the information? And like, we are talking, you know, my relationship with my wife and like what that's like, you know what I mean? It's just like, holy shit, man. I didn't really, you know, I wasn't prepared to kind of go down this hole with you, but you know, here we are.
Isn't that fascinating? It's like the trust level is really high with a financial advisor, I feel like, you know, and
Yeah.
I think as financial advisors, we have to be very good listeners. You know, more than anything, you're kind of just listening, trying to absorb as much as you can, feel into that person's personal situation, build that level of trust. Because when you do give a recommendation, it's really from the understanding of the other person and being able to see that other person, which I think is really unique in a lot of industries. I mean, maybe doctors definitely have a similar, you know, role. But you're right, Armando. I mean, how many times have you talked to your other people about your finances, like fully about your finances? Not many.
You don't.
You don't, right? It's one of those things. It's like it's on the list of do not talk about, right? It's finances
Yeah.
on that list. So for people to willingly open up to us, it's definitely something I don't take for granted. You know, I know that the confidentiality is really important. You know, they are opening up and they are, you know, trusting you with that information.
Yeah. And so when that happens, I mean, you know, the relationship go on for years at that point.
Ideally, yeah. So ideally, the relationship's going on for years. What's fun about our business is that we have a lot of multi-generational businesses. So we have some that are like our 4 or 5 generations.
Wow.
So father came abroad, you know, started the business. It might have been a shoe company or a dairy farm or, you know, what have you, widget company. And it's 3, 4 generations down the line. And you get to see the progression of the business, you know, how it's provided for the family over time. But then you're also in the midst of all the challenges too, right? So, you know, everyone's a little bit unique. You know, every business and every person is a little bit unique. So you get to see that over time.
This is a quick tangent, and then we'll go back to
Yeah.
this. But what are your feelings on like? There's just so much negativity, right? When it comes to what the future holds, and you know what I mean. Like, what do you say to people that are like, you know, looking at this landscape and just gloom and doom? The sky is falling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are you saying to those people? How are you navigating that?
That's a great question. So I think you need to be default optimistic in this business. If you're pessimistic, it just, you know, you start to fall behind. But someone a long time ago, and it might have been a Warren Buffett quote, and he says, one is like never bet against the United States. And 2, the United States gets a little bit better every single year. It might not seem that way, right? When you're looking month to month or year to year even, it doesn't look like we're getting better. But, you know, if you take a step back and say, okay, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you look at that time frame, and the U.S. and the economy and the engine that we have, the economic engine that we have, does get a little bit better every year. You know, so we might have these peaks and valleys and positives and negatives and wars and pandemics, but over time, you know, everything gets a little bit better. And you're seeing that with AI, you're seeing that with you know, technology, you're seeing that with energy, you're seeing that with a lot of different innovations. But when you look at it too closely, it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, Jim Rohn was talking about how he could predict the future. Right. And he was like, I'll tell you what the future is going to look like in the Jim Rohn way.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, the future is going to look like ups, and then it's going to be downs, and then there's going to be ups again, and then there's going to be downs. Right. Like, I think people forget where, just to your point, right? Like, when you're looking at it in a bigger picture, like 15, 20 years, it's not as crazy as what people are looking at like right now, and everybody's just so now focused. And it's like, dude, come on. Like, we know that you're gonna in personal life, you're gonna have ups and you're gonna have downs. In this country, you're gonna have ups and you're gonna have downs. In your city, you're gonna have ups and you're gonna have downs. In your state, like, so what, you know what I mean? Like, it is the consistency across time, and those are the people that end up, excelling and growing and being, successful, because they understand that it's all the long game.
You're so right, Armando. I love the up and down analogy because it's so true, and it's true for all parts of life, like you said. It's like, it's almost, you have to embrace the cycle, right? Like, this is a down cycle. Like, what's my playbook? How do I lean into the down? What am I learning here? Like, what can I tax? In every way, right? It's like, can I tax loss harvest? Can I average into good positions? How can I double down on things that I like? So to your point, I agree. It's like, these ups and downs are natural in life. And if you try to, but the problem is too, what I see for a lot of clients is they don't want to play the game, right? They don't want to play the up and down game. If you remove yourself from the game, you have no chance of success. You have to be in the game. You have to be in the game. So that's what we run into sometimes, is people say, you know what, I just don't like the ups and downs. Well, I mean,
that's life.
That's life. You got to figure out.
That's life, right? Like, you got ups and downs with your kids. You got ups and downs with your mate and your spouse. You got up and downs with your friends. Like, what? Yeah, I just, it frustrates me because, there is so much there's so much pessimistic views and negative around everything right now. And it's just like, guys, that's not reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just not the reality. The reality is that there are silver linings. There's crap that's going on, and there's amazing stuff that's going on. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you start to change the lens in which you view things, that's how things change. I'll tell you, I started work with, he calls himself an intentionality coach. His name is Abizer from Detroit.
Oh, I like that.
Shout out. I was like, you feel like a life coach to me. And he was like, what's a life coach? I don't really like that term, life coach, but he's more of an intentionality coach. And he was like, Armando, talk to me about things that any problems that you got going on right now. And I was like, well, I got a lot of ideas, right? And my ideas overwhelm me at times. And he's like, all right, keep going. And I was like, well, sometimes cause anxiety. He's like, what other words are coming to mind? I was like, maybe paralysis, because there's so many things that I don't know what to pull the trigger on.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, now I want you to take that same concept and I want you to view it through the lens of you having ideas, and this many ideas is a blessing, right? And that it's a gift to you. Mm-hmm. What words come from that perspective? And I was like, I guess if I'm looking at it from that perspective, I would say it's motivating, it's energizing, it's, I'm blessed, I'm grateful that I do have these ideas. And he was like, do you understand that when you change the perspective of how you view something, the intentionality behind it changes, right? And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So, so I'm on that kick now where it's just like, what if I'm taking the quote unquote negatives that are coming into my life and not view them as negatives, but view them from a perspective of gratitude that I am getting these obstacles and I am getting these problems in order for me to get better, right? And not view them from that. And I was just like, dude, he's a magic man.
It's heavy, Armando. I mean, even you just talking through that a little bit, you have like an emotional feel. Like your mindset change probably changes all of your emotions regarding a problem, a challenge, something that came out of left field, the loss of a client, like just in our business, say we lost a big client, if you could change that mindset and say, well, now I have more capacity, or now I have time to do more podcasts, or, something like that. Like that's a huge mentality shift, I imagine, is extremely helpful over time.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you're studying or you're training for the Olympics, right? And you hurt your back, like what's that, what happens? Like you can choose to take it and, let it depress you all the way down, or you can take it and do what you've done and, use it as a learning experience.
And it was a great learning experience. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, those types of losses or those types of setbacks in life, you kind of look back and it's like those were big turning points, really big. I'm sure you've had them too, Armando. Like those things are big. They're usually there's usually when you take a big step back like that. Usually it's almost like if you use it correctly, sometimes it's a launching off point, right? It's just this
Yeah.
launching off point for something maybe bigger. But no, I agree with you. I mean, specifically for the Olympic team, I mean, it was a really hard transition away. It was I hurt my back. Basically two bulging discs, couldn't row for probably about 2 years, and then I rehabbed it back. But it gave me the opportunity to come into the business. It gave me the opportunity to be a financial advisor, start a career, start a life. Something that I wouldn't be doing today if I didn't hurt my back. I wouldn't be a business owner the way I am now if I didn't hurt my back. So
How'd you meet your wife? You're married, right?
yeah, married. So I met her at Penn. So we were at, from before. She was a field hockey player. I was a rower, and we kind of met there, and did the cross country thing for a little while. She was in New York. I was in California, and then eventually we spent about 10 years in Philadelphia before moving to New Jersey. But yeah, two young boys, 5 and 7. They're just a lot of fun. So thinking about being intentional, that's a big focus of mine. Trying to be intentional with them. Trying to be an intentional dad. I think that's an important part right now, especially with young kids. Because
How old are they?
5 and 7.
I got a 5-year-old. How are you trying to connect with your kids and like instilling, discipline and, or are you focused on that at all?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So I read a book. It was like a Navy SEAL book about parenting, and that might be a little intense, right? So it's like, but
The Navy SEAL Guide
yeah, right. On
to
parenting.
Raising Kids.
Yeah, right. And they were like, put them in the water. I was like, and see how they react. And I was like, okay. So it's interesting when you're there, when your kids are in the water, there's a level of fear and boundaries that they need to rely on you to get through that exercise, right? So if they can't swim or they're not competent swimmers or they're jumping into the bottom of the pool, they might need you there as kind of like a guide. So that's been a big help for me, is like teaching them how to jump into waves and surfing and, all these things, where I don't want to say it's a little bit dangerous, but it's like, I'm going to need dad's help. If I push it too far, I'm going to need dad to show me where the boundary is. So for me, that's been really helpful. Anything with the water has been really, really impactful for me. Just because they need you, right? Like they need you in that environment. It's a little unsafe, not too, not bad, but they're going to lean on you. So
Yeah.
I found that really helpful, in trying to instill, boundaries and some discipline too. But that's been fun.
I'm trying to navigate with my daughter because she is like me. You know what I mean? She's totally like me in terms of, being a free spirit and just doing things the way she wants to do them, right? And going, okay, I need to give her enough room for her to explore that, but also give boundaries so that she does learn, discipline and things like that. So that is quite challenging for me because like, I don't want to make the mistake that my parents made with me in terms of making me feel like there was something wrong with me because I thought the way that I thought, right? Because I was always like the black sheep of the family. And it was always like, oh, what's wrong with Armando? And then I read that book, Driven by Dr. Doug Brackman. And it was one of the first times I read a book that finally like validated me as this person that had this insatiable need to grow and was okay. You know what I mean? Like I'm never satisfied. Like I'll get to a goal and I'm like, great, got it. What's next? You know what I mean? And I never read a book that was like, oh, there's people like that that are like me. Right.
Right.
And so I know that my daughter has this, right? Like just innate. She's 5 and she'll run like 8 and 9-year-olds, right? Like they're following what she's, telling them to do.
Yeah.
So I know she has that. So it's just like, but she is a handful, right? Like she's got that. So navigating that line is,
Question: do you let them fail? Like, do you And how much do you let them fail? Like when they're kids like that, do you let them, kind of push that boundary? Like you said, like your daughter's probably exploring, she's driven, she's trying every angle, different things. When do you step in and say, okay, that's an avenue that you need to stay away from? Or do you let them do it and then learn on their own?
That's the question, right? Like that's what I am struggling with. Like, what is the thing that I step in and do? What are the things that I stay away from? So I don't know. I'm navigating that.
It's tough.
It is. It's extremely tough. There's manuals, but there's really no manual for this child, right? Like what works for this child doesn't necessarily work, over here. So it's fun though.
Yeah. And Armando, we haven't even hit the social media age yet, where kids are into, Oof. I know it's like, that's always a concern, right? It's like,
it's a heavy concern. I grew up with a lot of the pop culture, right? Like I watched a lot of movies and that's how I got into film and I was an actor, and so show business and storytelling and all of that was a huge part of my life.
Oh, neat.
And for my daughter, like we shot a mini movie with her dolls, right? Like, so there was a little Yoda was the villain throwing like boulders at Barbie's house, and Superman, Barbie, Ariel, and Ken were like the 4 superheroes that were at a picnic. Anyway, so it was fun, right? And she got to talk through it, and she had a blast,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, this is cool. This is, it really turned some things on in her brain, which I was all like, oh, I like that she is seeing things and it's lighting her up. You know what I mean? So I'm trying different things like that. Like I'm trying to teach her the ukulele, but I'm more doing a lot of the artistic side of things.
I love that.
She's starting kindergarten, so I'm hoping to push her into the more academic stuff, which I am just not the academic person. So hopefully she'll get that, and maybe she can take that creative side and become a doctor.
Right, a doctor. Great combination.
Yeah, would love that.
That's fun. That's a fun thing.
Yeah. How about you? So how are you navigating, just the upbringing? Are they like, running around the house, tearing things down, or?
No, they are. I mean, I have 2 boys, so they're 5 and 7. So they're constantly, they're being boys. They're almost constantly wrestling, running around. That's kind of their thing.
Right.
But it's just, I think just trying to focus their attention is just something that needs to be always intentional. Speaking about I love the word intentional. Just a great term. But, being intentional about, getting their outlets correct. But no, social media is concerned with me. For me, I think for sure. You think about where we grew up is we didn't have that type of access to social media. I had Facebook when I was in college for the first time, but that was the extent of it. So college was your first access to social media. I worry that outlet that they have right now that's really healthy and physical and, wanting to run outside, all of a sudden that outlet starts to go focused on a screen, so I don't know how to actually manage that. Because if you take it away completely, it's something that isn't healthy. They need to have some access to it. But,
Sure.
How do you have a healthy relationship with that, as you grow up? I think that's something that'll be really important for, I think, our generation, in terms of raising kids.
Yeah, it's always something, right? Like
yeah.
Back in, 50 years ago, you didn't have to worry about that, but you had other things to worry about, right? Like, making it to 5 years old,
Right.
like, kids were, the mortality rate was high.
Right.
Now it's not as high, but we have other problems we got to deal with, right? So I guess we'll adapt and change. We didn't even know what AI is going to be like, right? So it's just
so true.
That thing is going to be, change. It just changes things, right? Like the Industrial Revolution changed things, and so I think but humans are good at adapting and changing. And the people that adapt and change, flourish and we find ways, and the people that are stuck in old ways, well, they they're stuck in old ways, and they're just going to stay stagnant, and that's just the way it goes, you know? So when you're advising your clients, you're advising them on investments, but are you advising them when it comes to their business as well, like exit strategy? And
that's what we specialize in. So we specialize in business owner exits. So the typical business owner, for a typical business owner, 80% of their net worth is tied up in their business. 20% is liquid. Majority of their values in their business. And the majority of businesses atrophy over time. They don't have a strategy for exit. Something usually happens. The owner gets sick, they get too busy, they retire, and then the business just slows down over time. That's the typical small, medium-sized business. What we try to do is say, okay, you have an alternative. Maybe you could sell. Maybe you could transition to another generation. Maybe you could bring in an operator to buy back some more of your time. So we try to map that out for clients financially and say, okay, this is going to cost you X, Y, Z, but you're going to get a return from this, and it's going to be completely different financial picture for you going forward. If you do some of these things, and those are are really exciting clients, because when they're engaged, they're really engaged. They want to get the job done. They're business owners. They're driven, and then when you have an exit like that, it's a pretty fun event, and then it's life-changing for them. It's really life-changing. It's all their hard work, maybe multi-generation work, right? It's third generation selling the business. It's a lot to consider. So yes, to answer your question, that's what we specialize in now is business owners who are looking to transition their business.
Gotcha. And how much of your job is like, I guess a personal trainer would be to their clients, where they're all like, gotta stay disciplined, guys. You gotta stay disciplined. How many of those conversations are you having?
A lot. A lot of it is temperament. So, temperament is really important in the markets. I would say temperament is even more important than intelligence. Sometimes you find really smart people, brilliant, doctors, attorneys, people who are really top of their field, but the temperament to stay in the market or to stay disciplined isn't quite as high. And they usually have some trouble, right? Because they're always really, really thinking hard about the next step, the next investment, making a change. But oftentimes the best option is to not make a change. It's to stay the course. So temperament is critical. So to your point, we are a coach a lot of times. We're like a trainer. We're like, you gotta eat your veggies this day. You gotta, market's down, don't panic. Like you gained a pound or two, like it's okay. It's going to be all right. Like if we do X, Y, Z, I promise we're going to stay on track. So we do a lot of our job is that, especially in a down market.
Yeah, I think we do the same, right? It's just like, everybody's getting this shiny object syndrome, and we're like, great, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And if we have the time and we want to play with that shiny object, that's cool, but we have the plan that we have here, so we're gonna keep doing this plan.
Yeah.
Not to say that you can't do that over there. Do that a little bit, but like this is the bulk of what we're doing, right? So just stay the course, and then that way, at the end, we know this works. We've done it before. Mm-hmm. We'll do it again to just stay the course, right? So
for sure.
That's it's always gotta. It depends on where they're at, right? Sometimes you're just like, I don't know what this is. Just hey. I get it. Just, I know I've been there. If you just stay the course, you're going to be all right. Just keep doing what you're doing.
100%. And it's just giving them the confidence to say, okay, I can calm down. I can stay the course.
Yeah. So how do people work with you, Neil? How do they find you? What are the offers that you have?
Yeah. So we work in Linwood, New Jersey. So which is right outside of Atlantic City. We work for a division called Finet, which is within Wells Fargo. But you can find us by typing in McPeak Wealth Management Group online. You can look at our website, LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn's great. Neil McPeak Jr. on LinkedIn. Give you more information about our team and what we do. But yeah, those would probably be the two best spots to find more information about our team.
Very cool. Neil, I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being on the show. And we'll definitely connect after this, and
great.
Let's y'all, if you guys are looking for some financial advising, if you guys are on an exit strategy, if you guys need advice getting to that point, I highly recommend meeting with Neil, talking about what your exit strategy should be. You know what I mean? So that when you are at that point, it's ready to go.
Awesome. Armando, thank you.
Yeah, man. And that was Spaghetti on the Wall, brought to you by Leduc Entertainment. For all of your digital marketing needs, podcasts, organic social, customer journey videos, we got you. Keep watching Spaghetti on the Wall. Keep listening. We'll see y'all next time.